when things were at mid 70s to kind of 70k-ish Bitcoin, 6 weeks ago, it felt like we had no chance, potentially, like of pushing back into all-time highs.
Ethereum obviously had its huge critiques over the last, let's call it 2 years, like not performing. Starting to see that one be one of the leaders. I think it was last week or the week before, it put in a 39% week.
Yep. Another famous brand in crypto have hit the NASDAQ for a public listing as well. Galaxy Digital, who've been around for a long time, now listed on the NASDAQ. We obviously seen Coinbase listed some time ago. And rumours around Kraken potentially as well. It's a bit of a trend at the moment for some of the big brands in crypto.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's Tapping Into Crypto with me, Pav, and Tommy's back.
I'm back. Two in a row, Matt.
2 in a row. How's it feel?
Set your watch to it.
I probably forgot to set my watch this morning.
Except for now we've lost Ted. So something has to give.
Well, funny thing, obviously I was infected last week. Maybe Ted's infected this week.
Safe today?
Well, safe today. I think I'm safe today.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
It's been a bit hard dodging what's going around at the moment.
Yeah, it's kind of like you look at that picture of the podcast cover and like, has anyone ever seen the three of us in a room at the same time?
It's been a long time. I would say a year and a half at least.
But is it even possible?
Question mark.
Right, so I'll leave it open.
Yeah, leave it out.
It's like that whole, the some of the football players that are like twins. There's this whole conspiracy theory going around about, I think it's the guy who plays for Essendon, and they're like identical twins, and they'd never played in a game against each other.
All right,
so
same guy.
Everyone's like, oh, it's just one dude. it's like going around like that, but no, we don't look enough alike to be able to get away with that one. Definitely not you and I, Pav. Ted, swing it, I guess.
We could swing it. Yeah. Really good makeup artist, could make wonders happen.
Probably, yeah.
But look, enough of that nonsense. We're here to talk about, is this all over for the Bears? Are the Bears cooked? Are they going back to their caves? Are they going to go hiding? So we've got some interesting data coming out of the ETFs that we're going to cover. Some pretty important announcements, I think, that are just happening globally right now. I feel like it's just a bit of a hot pot for just good news, and the market's actually responding to the good news lately, which is good to see. Then I thought it'd be pretty fitting for us to talk about what happened at the start of this week, just Sunday. Everyone probably woke up on Monday, saw Bitcoin just roaring, and then all of a sudden fall off a cliff. So, why don't we start with that? What did you make of the start of this week?
It's just super rare to see the volatile moves like that on a Sunday. I can't remember the last time, especially to the upside. Yeah. Usually you can see kind of, like you said, low volatility, low volume type days on the weekends. Like we're used to.
It's usually really grindy, right?
That's right. But it was there was an exponential move. I think it was like Sunday evening Australia time.
It was like 11 p.m. on the dot.
Yeah. And again, it was just something, I guess, I was in bed. I didn't see it happening, but I definitely woke up in the morning and there was massive green candles. And it was something that, absolutely not used to as a kind of a Sunday night move. Yep. Don't really know what had spurred it or where it came from, but it was relatively short-lived. I think by 10 or 11 a.m. again in Australia time, it had cooled off pretty significantly, and you've seen some of the altcoins had actually sold off kind of 5 to 10% in the same time period. Yep. Bitcoin, I think, over the weekend, again, depends where your source is, but 107k on some exchanges it was hit, so that's less than $2,000 away from an all-time high. So super exciting moves. Hasn't necessarily held. I get at the time of recording now, I think we're at about 106k, which is not pretty.
Got Lee up there, 105,
900. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah.
But I'm usually not too far away with these predictions. I don't know. Maybe I'm watching it pretty closely. But it was definitely a move that wasn't expected, and then we had to get a bit of a cool off pretty quickly. So I guess what did you think about it? The move itself was like
same as you. Like I had an early night, and I woke up just going whoa, like literally. If you haven't seen it, just go look at a chart very quickly. And if you don't know how to look at charts, it's just like elevator up and
cliff
elevator
down.
Fall through the floor down. So super volatile. But like you said, Sundays, weekends, usually there's not that many people sort of backing the market, like providing liquidity on both sides. So you do see these illiquid moves, and that's what it was. It's just like a really emotional up and emotional crash down. So for me, like I think we could probably attest to it, like living through previous all-time high breakthroughs. This one's a little bit different because we've kind of already done it once before in recent time, but it feels pretty similar to what I've seen in the past, at least. You tend to see for 2 to 3 days some really volatile chop just under all-time highs before you get that clean breakthrough, and then it never comes back. Speaking specifically about Bitcoin here. So, do you like the chances of that happening again? Like just a nice clean break?
Yeah, I think, I talked about last week here with Ted on the podcast, when things were at mid-70s to kind of 70K-ish Bitcoin, 6 weeks ago, it felt like we had no chance, potentially, like of pushing back into all-time highs. It's amazing what a couple of weeks does in footy, as they say, or in crypto.
Yeah.
And I think, where we're at now, it definitely feels... I will say the market is very quiet.
That's what gets me. Yeah.
Retail or not here, I'm kind of like okay with it, that it's quiet and we're talking about Bitcoin being, less than a couple of grand away from an all-time high. I think that in itself is a bullish sign, or it's a positive sign. You would expect retail to come, I guess, back in and start to get excited again once we do hit an all-time high, or at least if we break through on a decent amount. The sentimental number, or the number that people seem to be talking about now, is 120K Bitcoin, like US. 108, under 109 is kind of the previous all-time high. So we're looking at call it another 14% move from where we're at right now to hit that 120K mark.
It's funny you say that. April and May each month has been about 11.9 to 11.8% equally. We've had back-to-back months of like equal growth. So, I mean, that would take us to 120.
Yeah, and I think that seems to be like the new meme, right? Or the new number is like Bitcoin at 120K. Everyone's going to be rushing in to buy it again. It's tricky. I don't know if I necessarily align with that. I mean, I'd like to think that the rising tide on Bitcoin will lift some of the altcoins and lift the other boats, but it hasn't necessarily played out like that of recent.
Nah,
so
it's been Bitcoin only, right?
A lot of it's been Bitcoin only. Yeah. We've seen, the narrative a few weeks ago was the Bitcoin dominance was dropping. It dropped by about less than 1%, and then obviously that's turned straight around again. So, yeah.
Well, that's an interesting one. Like, we haven't, just to talk about it quite quickly, like Ethereum has obviously has had its huge critiques over the last, let's call it 2 years, like not performing, right? Starting to see that one be one of the leaders. I think it was last week or the week before, it put in a 39% week. Yep. Like, is that still your gauge for how the altcoins are going to perform? Like, for
not necessarily anymore. I think I do to a degree see Ethereum tracking separately, Bitcoin tracks separately, as we kind of know already.
Yep.
I kind of put ETH back into that same bucket now. Like this, and this is probably just in this cycle. Previous cycles, absolutely. Bitcoin moves. If the alt moves, Ethereum moves alongside them. I feel like Ethereum kind of can track on its own now a little bit, like outside of the market, as opposed to just tracking, every single other altcoin. But that also works to the downside.
Yeah.
Look, ETH's had a stable coin 3 years, right? Like pretty much we started it.
I think it's still down 6 or 7% for the year.
Yeah, that's right.
For the last year, 365 days.
365 days, yeah. I think we were looking at it. Lee had the numbers up last week. We were still like 40-50% away from an all-time high on Ethereum. 55%.
55 for the last 30 days.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of. I think Ethereum can make kind of individualized moves now.
Yep.
But look, when the altcoins run, you do expect it to go as well. So there's no perfect science to it.
No.
I guess, it's just something I've probably highlighted for this market is that, I'll put it to you this way. When all of the other altcoins were running, Ethereum was doing nothing. So I think the inverse of that can happen as well. And
ETH runs and nothing else runs?
ETH runs and nothing else runs. And that's kind of where, we're looking at that plus 55% for ETH in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
Kind of semi-signaling to that, potentially.
I like that, because I kind of buy into that narrative, because a lot of people won't expect it, number one, so therefore people won't be pricing it in. So when it does happen, everyone will be chasing it, and that's when you get that crazy move on something like ETH, potentially.
Well, we've seen it regress from 2200. It was like the number it stayed at for like years, 18 months maybe. And then we saw that retracement back to 1400 US. Very bearish levels for Ethereum holders. Like, that's not where you want to be sitting. Yep. But it obviously did recover, and we're back up to the 2500, I think 2400 at the time of recording. So that's pretty good reversal. If you were buying at the 1400 mark, it's it would have been a decent short term investment at least.
Yep.
But But I think just, in terms of the overall belief in Ethereum, I think that doesn't diminish. Like the economic scale of Ethereum, the supercomputer of DeFi, like just all of those properties I think are still true. The market eventually will catch up on it, I believe.
Yeah,
so I think it's still, for me, a long-term hold. It's a long-term play.
Yep.
And it's something that, I think as part of a balanced portfolio, you've got, obviously Bitcoin is your primary, at least for mine, it's my primary. I don't know if you have different views on
these days it is.
These days you're on the Bitcoin train?
Yeah, things have changed for me.
But Ethereum, you're getting older, having more kids. It's like shit.
Need some stability.
Some stability, yeah. But like, in general, that's kind of, I think it does make up part of a kind of a more balanced portfolio these days anyway. So
yeah, nice. And to add some more color to that, like we can even look at something like the institutional flows, the ETFs, Bitcoin returning back to form, to be honest. It's been, since the start of May, a pretty decent average net inflows. Ethereum's still not really catching a bid, so we're not seeing much demand there. So that kind of tells that even from that institutional aspect, they're still not pricing in that it's going to go higher. So if it does sort of run away, it's easy to see how it could just chase away, like you're saying.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a cause and effect of the prospected new ETFs coming to market. Like, do you think some of the institutional players maybe are thinking about, they want to get in on a Solana ETF, they want to get in on a SUI ETF, or they want to get in on some of these other newer kind of narrative-driven assets, I guess?
It's a good point, because if you think about if someone wanted to get into crypto, like you really have two things. I feel like you're either like an evangelist and you're a believer like Michael Saylor.
Yep.
Or you're simply just here for the growth and you're going to put a concentrated risk on a bet in crypto. So that would be like, what we see currently with like VCs coming in. They'll, buy in a couple $100K, maybe a couple of mil into something like SUI or Say or TIA, whatever there was, like all these VC projects, right? So they'll look to get their return in something in a very like high risk, high reward manner. So, but the ETFs do open up a different door. So maybe there would be more demand for what you're saying, like, it's higher out on the risk curve, but if the whole market, broadly speaking, which is what we're seeing, is getting out of those safer, we're seeing treasury bonds in the US rise. Well, that's because basically people are selling those bonds, so they're going to go to other markets. Crypto is one of them. It's where you can get risk exposure and look to grow their wealth. So, I think we might be surprised when those ETFs land what the actual demand might be like. That could be quite fire, but. All being said, I even think, for myself personally speaking, like all-time highs are inevitable. I mean, I was kind of saying by the end of this year, I'm getting closer and closer to saying before the quarter's up, to be honest, even before the week is up at this rate, the way it's looking.
Let's go.
Let's go. But I wouldn't discount the idea that this is, when we get to all-time highs like this, like we said, it's choppy. We could go back down sub 100K even before we shoot back up in a blaze of glory. Like that's just what crypto's known to do. So just be very careful, I would say.
Yeah, the point you made earlier about like we do often see these like almost like fake outs and like very close tests of all-time highs, and then you'll see a significant kind of pullback, to your point, like below the 100K mark. I think is very possible before we see it break the 109K 110K mark. But I guess, look, no one's got the crystal ball. It's about staying with it. But I think the long-term view is that we will break it relatively soon. So unless anything changes significantly.
Something that might help it on its way, just turning to some of the more news stories that we're seeing at the moment. Michael Saylor strategy. They've bagged another 7,390 Bitcoin last week. And that was just leading up to that rally that we did see. So I think there's some interesting analysis as well from Alex Kruger on Twitter, at Kruger Macro. Go check him out. Basically saying at Saylor's recent accumulation rate of 1,620 Bitcoin per day since November 2024, it would take him 5.7 years to acquire 20% of Bitcoin supply. That's how much of the silver supply the Hunt brothers held when they cornered the silver market in the early 1980s. And so he points to a chart of, again, a similar sort of situation where you have one party accumulating more than anyone else, and they basically drove the price of silver from the 70s, sub $10, all the way up to plus $40. And then 2 years later, it crashed back down to $10. So I know we were joking about it before about Saylor being interviewed in the past and being asked when he's selling, and what does he like to say, Tommy?
No, he said he's not selling, right? He's holding it forever. He's going to pass it on to, I don't know who's going to pass it on to. He's not married or anything. He's a single man, I think. Yeah. So
he might just burn it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's part of the strategy brand, I guess, and that corporation carrying it forward. But it's yeah, he's definitely won out on the spectrum on his own, isn't he? Really. So
well, yeah. There's people obviously trying to copycat what he's doing, but it's the biggest moment of vindication for someone like him. He's been going at it for how many years now? Like, I don't know. Strategy started, like MicroStrategy, was it 2020?
Long time. No, they're in terms of the Bitcoin strategy for them. I think that started in 2019. 2020.
Yeah.
But MicroStrategy obviously been around for a long time doing different things. But yeah, it's definitely look at the moment, Bitcoin at all-time highs. He looks like one of the a genius, right? Yeah. But there's always periods of time and markets change. There's going to be a bear market that'll test all of these strategies over time, right? So that's kind of
absolutely
something that we all have to watch pretty closely.
Absolutely. Yeah, but again, just going to show that there obviously is risks if there is a single person that's going to accumulate most of the market. I personally don't see it happening, especially with people like 21 Capital coming to the fray. You've got Metaplanet, a whole bunch of copycats of strategy. Yeah. They're all going to between themselves dilute out that supply.
And I think when you think about what's going to happen over the next 5 years from a regulatory perspective as well, like there's going to be the door is going to open for a lot more capital to come in to Bitcoin. I think that's exactly what you'll see. And yet, to your point, the opportunity just won't be there for him to acquire that much. Given the other big fish in the sea about to come in and get access to it. So
yeah, it seems like an interesting take, but yeah, I don't know if it'll play out. But some of the more interesting news items that we've had this week, Solana's got a big conference on right now. They've basically shown off a new proposal to replace the proof of history system that they currently use, basically looking to bring Web 2 speeds to the Web 3 product. So that's pretty big, right? Doesn't address the issues of potential network outages, but the new proposal, which has been spun out as ANSA, basically looks to improve what Solana's already got going, which some would argue is probably one of the best products on the market at the moment in terms of like user experience.
Yeah, sure.
And it's interesting timing because Ethereum just did their upgrades. Pectra was that?
Yeah, Pectra upgrade.
2 weeks ago?
We covered it last week in the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is interesting timing. I feel like it's a bit of interesting back and forth there, but yeah, just a little bit of a quote. They're basically saying, we believe that the release of Appenglow, which is the protocol, that the consensus layer that they're suggesting as a part of Project ANSA, will be a turning point of Solana. Appenglow is not only a new consensus protocol, but the biggest change to Solana's core protocol since ever. So some pretty big words there. So yeah.
Let's see how they execute on it, because Ethereum obviously had the merge from proof of work to proof of stake, and it kind of was. It's been touted as like almost like a perfect integration. That it was so well executed. It was kind of like the whole analogy of changing engines in the plane while it's flying kind of scenario. But it went off relatively smooth without a hitch. I think I don't know if they had many issues at all after as part of the execution. So Solana's obviously been a project that's been shaky with respect to stability for a long time. It's going to be interesting to see how their first kind of major project update or infrastructure update goes.
I remember they did something to their client back in, I think it was like 21 or 22, and it crashed. All their validators had to roll the chain back a bit or something like that. I don't think it was a rollback, but it was a big impact.
They've had a lot of issues like that, right, down through the years. But it's
like Ethereum's this slow, methodical, do it right, but everyone's going to complain it's too slow, and Solana's been do it fast.
It's a trade-off, right? It's always the trade-off. Yeah. And I did see, Pav, another famous brand in crypto have hit the NASDAQ for a public listing as well. Galaxy Digital, who have been around for a long time, more of an institutional investing house focused on digital assets. So they've now listed on the NASDAQ. We obviously seen Coinbase listed some time ago, and rumors around Kraken potentially as well.
Yeah, so I saw that tweet.
It's all happening. It's a bit of a trend at the moment for some of the big brands in crypto. A couple of acquisitions as well. Robinhood had bought WonderFi, which is like a big player in the Canadian market.
Is WonderFi an exchange?
Yeah, they're an exchange. Okay. Yeah, so that was an acquisition that happened, I think, last week, or it was announced at Consensus, I believe, happening in Toronto last week. And then I think a well-publicized Coinbase acquisition of Durbit, which is the largest leverage trading platform. So there seems to be some movers and shakers, some things happening in that area as well. We've talked for a long time. not just in the Australian market, but globally, about just the amount of businesses, the amount of like smaller and medium business, and just the whole acquisition landscape. And it's something that we're starting to see play out both here at home in the Australia ANZ market, APAC market, and then also globally. So yeah, watch the space in the acquisition place as well. Your favorite app could be owned by someone else, you know, kind of soon. It's just like that at the moment, all right? Like there's a lot of
it doesn't seem like it's limited. Like even stablecoins, like it's not confirmed, but apparently purported USDCs in talks with apparently Ripple Labs and Coinbase into a multi-billion-dollar acquisition as well. So like you're saying, just a great reshuffling of the powers that be.
If that's true, it very quickly it fits the Ripple mantra. Like they want it to be the, you know, global remittance business forever, right? You know, they launched their own stablecoin recently, the Ripple RLUSD.
Yeah,
I think that was about maybe 6 months ago or less.
I think so.
So it's clear that that's been their vision from day one. What I couldn't understand is how it took them so long to actually launch a stablecoin. When the Ripple Ripple token was, you know, this kind of tradable asset and not necessarily
a store of value,
like
constant
you would
value.
Like you would expect for a product for remittance purely. But anyway, it seems like they've kind of pivoted slightly on the strategy, and it'd be very interesting to see if there's any truth behind that story about them, you know, being interested in the Circle model.
Yeah, I mean, it would sort of squash one of their biggest, obviously, hurdles in terms of getting a competitor out of the way. So yeah, see what happens there.
That's it. Yeah,
if it's true.
That's right.
Other than that, I mean, it's not too much happening on my radar. Other than that, like I feel like the macro is looking pretty calm. Donald Trump hasn't said anything too silly lately, so people aren't getting spooked. Tend to find that his counterpart Scott Bessent is coming out, just throwing waves of optimism and just composure across markets, which is calming. So it'd be interesting to see if nothing changes and we're seeing this pressure build up. Do we see another crack at the all-time high next week or this week?
Nice. I think we've got a chance for the podcast next week. We could potentially be touching on a new all-time high, but it just seems like there's a bit of momentum there, especially around Bitcoin. So very keen to see. Hopefully people that are listening have got their Bitcoin exposure and they've built it up over the last 3 or 4 years of listening to us harp on about it over time. And we've even got you to buy Bitcoin now, Pav, which is like, for me, that's a big signal in market. Pav's got some Bitcoin.
Yep.
We're making some of the right moves.
Yeah. It's exciting times ahead, I feel.
Cool. We'll leave it there for this week.
It's a wrap.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Cheers.